welcome to this panel discussion, and I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have these three world players with me as we discuss the magic of Indian food out on the world stage. Let me begin by introducing our panelists. Indians know British-born Australian chef Gary Mehigan from his very long stint on MasterChef Australia, and more recently, his series on Indian food, Masters of Taste with Gary Mehigan, for which he traveled the length and breadth of India. Welcome, Gary. So great to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. Nice introduction too.
Thank you so much. So everyone knows Varun Inamdar as an award-winning chef, chocolatier, food stylist, and author. He is known also for his 533 million reach via his digital presence and his great championing of Indian food. He is globally known as the Prince of Chocolates, and he holds the Guinness World Record for the world's largest chocolate mud pie, weighing a whopping 1,346 kilos in 2018. Welcome, Varun. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much. And namaste. And a great privilege and an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Sashi Cheliah holds the record for the highest ever score in a MasterChef Australia final. That's 93 out of the maximum 100 points. Amazing. Especially since MasterChef Australia is so very popular in India. He traces his roots to India, and he was raised in Singapore and has lived in Australia since 2012. After winning the competition, he has been living his dream of understanding different cultures and cuisines from around the world. He now runs a restaurant called Gaja by Sashi in Adelaide, Australia. Welcome, Sashi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to have a chat with all of you.
Thanks so much, guys. I'm just going to set a little more of the scene here. All three of you are evidence of how big a player Indian food is on the world stage. Gary, your popularity in India brought home to us how much of an impact MasterChef Australia has had on us as a nation. Indians love the Australian version even when we got our own MasterChef show. And part of the reason was because of the judges themselves. Gary, we love that you've loved us back, and you've been to India 8 times, I think.
Yeah, maybe even more. I've lost count, to be honest. Quite a few times now.
Yeah. So,
and I would have loved to have visited this year, but a different year, huh?
Yeah. Always more in the future. Sashi, Singapore is in your past, Australia in your present, but Indians are so proud of you and your origins in Madurai, especially since you're proud to acknowledge those influences as well. And Varun, of course, you are a master of diplomacy via food. You are the chef who has put together tremendous Indian banquets for over 75 diplomatic guests of the Indian Prime Minister and President, and that's really cool. Okay, so that's why all three of you make absolutely brilliant panelists for this, and I thank you for accepting our invitation and joining us today.
Thank
you.
I want to start by exploring your perceptions and experiences of Indian food out in the world. Gary, you've always said that Indian food out in the world needs a cool, funky environment. In an interview you gave me some years ago, I quote, "We're waiting for chefs to bring Indian food to Australia, not to change it, not to fuse it, not to make it international, but to embrace it and serve it in a cool, funky environment. Serve it with a nice beer, put it in a nice bar." Tell us, in your opinion, how this is going.
I think it's going well, actually. It's I don't think anybody's listening to me over here, but it's certainly changing. And, we're always searching for the next big thing, aren't we, Sashi, in Australia? So, the advent of this kind of non-homogenized Indian food, which we all got very used to, I think the British did too. We thought that maybe it only consisted of about 15 or 20 dishes because every Indian restaurant that you went to served exactly the same, but that's changing. And what's lovely is I'm getting invitations, weekly and monthly from restaurants that are like, "Hey, you need to come and try our food because we're doing something different." And I think it was last week sometime, actually, there's a restaurant in Fitzroy in Melbourne called Ish. And I believe it's called Ish because it's Indian-ish, which is quite interesting. And they're doing some really, different kind of food. You know, I mean, it's still recognizable, it's still comfortable, it's still, you know, very Indian, you know, in a broad sense, but they're having a play, which is lovely. So they, you know, what they're posting on their Instagram are things like, you know, naan bread with fermented black garlic, or you know, seekh kebab sausage rolls, you know, with red dal chutney, and making nahari, but using, you know, baby lamb shoulder, and, you know, making it look, you know, utterly beautiful. So I think it's certainly changing. I think the big surprise for me when I first went to India is, I think a good friend of mine, a good Indian friend of mine, said to me, don't go with any preconceptions, you know, like let it just kind of flood in. So my first few visits were very much that, and full of surprises and full of dishes that I'd never tried before. And I think it took a few visits for me to really, you know, I made some clumsy, you know, kind of not comments, but assumptions about food that, having visited subsequently and had the pleasure of going into people's homes or traveling, you know, north to south and seeing how diverse it is and how different it is, that was such a surprise. And I suppose, you know, coming back to Australia, wondering why that kind of diversity didn't exist here. But it's coming, you know, like it's part of, you know, our globalism and our, you know, well, not this year, but, you know, increased travel. You know, we've got a lot of Indian communities here, and looking much more, you know, diverse than they ever have, and being much more influential in the community. So, of course, with that comes lots of change, and food's part of that.
Yeah, I
Does that make
think
sense?
also this whole thing of when Indian food travels and it changes a little, and it still works so well, because I know I was talking to this lady called Ravinder Bogal, who has a restaurant in London called Chikoni, and what she does is Indian and with a twist, and it's done really well, because she says she's proudly inauthentic, you know, but you still get the essence, and it is cool and funky because people are coming and looking at it. And
well, I think Atul Kutcher, he did NRI in Delhi, which was not really Indian. And I love that, because it was, and it would be the next show I'd love to do. Sashi, maybe you could do it with me. But it was about exploring, you know, Indian food around the world, you know, whether it was the West Indies or South Africa or, you know, London or Malaysia, or, you know, it's touched every point of the globe. And as it goes, you know, and to many Indians, it may be disappointing, but for the rest of us, it's wonderful, is these dishes change and they evolve and they adapt to the locality, you know, where they settle. You know, in South Africa, you know, bunny chow is quite funny, you know, like I'm sure, Sashi, you look at it and go, you know, what is that? But it's, you know, to South Africans, and particularly along, you know, the East Coast, bunny chow is just like a national dish. Yeah.
And such a cool story. Stories, I think stories in food are so important, you know, I mean, carrying it out and, you know, eating it as a portable kind of dish also makes such a big difference.
I think that's what I'm also doing in my restaurant. So what I've done is I've brought in my influence from my family, which is predominantly Indian. But since we lived in Singapore, a lot of Malaysian influence came in. And when I came to Australia, a lot of Western influence came in. And when I set up the restaurant, all these three elements put together, and I've created a menus that is me, pretty much close to me. It's not authentic, but you still have the flavors, the taste of Indian, but it's presented in a very modern manner with a lot of garnishing. It's totally different from what you get in India, but it's Indian restaurant, Indian food, but it looks totally different.
Yes, and so you've answered my next question to you, because you always wanted, in a way, you always were very vocal about your desire to open a fusion restaurant showcasing Indian and South Asian flavors. And now Gaja by Sashi is making such waves. So what were the conscious changes that you made? I mean, was there something that you did to sort of tweak it? And do you agree with Gary on the need for a cool and funky environment for Indian food?
I totally agree with him, because that is what I adapted in my restaurant. If the first thing when you come into the restaurant is colors, full of colors, light, so vibrant, so funky, is a paradise for Instagram and photo takers. So that is, I was very conscious about that. Then food, the presentation and infusing, I didn't compromise on flavors. Flavors, it should be a flavor bomb on the food. But in terms of presenting and in terms of using different cuisines together, I like to mix cuisines together. Like sashimi, I have a curry sauce with sashimi. So it's a bit of a Japanese and Indian flavors coming together. So I took the risk of changing certain elements in the dishes, but do not compromising on flavors. And initially, it was a bit of a shocker for people because there wasn't any restaurant like that sort in Adelaide at that moment.
Yep.
But after 1 year, I think people have accepted and they're enjoying it at the moment. So yeah, I took a big of a risk, but it paid off pretty well.
So you can take lots of cues from Varun's background. If you see, everything in that frame is so Instagrammable that I mean, it's got all the colors and everything. And
I'm looking at the plant pots and the vases in the background.
Absolutely.
Even the mirror
Every
is beautiful.
time.
I love the colors. Varun's background. It's amazing. Like
Yeah,
mine, I
so
feel so boring at the moment.
So that's all on sale.
Sorry?
Everything that you see here is all on sale. You can click the link and buy it right now.
He will never disappoint. Every time I've met him or I've had him on lives, you can be sure that, you know, if you were bottling up Indian food and presenting it, that it should be Varun, because I mean that sort of captures the color and the flavor and the spice and the interest and the diversity all in one man. So he's a great ambassador.
That's so sweet of you. Thank you.
So such a great sort of ambassador for Indian food. But anyway, Varun, your question is, your inroads into diplomacy have extended well beyond Rashtrapati Bhavan. And you've done so many food festivals abroad in which you've represented Indian food and delighted enthusiasts as far as Central America, which is a long way from us, and as well as the royal family in Kuwait. So what has been the reception when you've taken it? Have you had to make it cool and funky, as we have spoken about it? And what would you have changed, if anything, in hindsight? So, and we want to hear some nice, because you've done so much diplomatic and, you know, celebrity cooking. We want, without names, we want to hear some inside stories.
Okay, so I have quite taken a detour here. I have not made food cool and funky. And I completely respect the opinions of Gary and Shashi here because, see, they represent Indian food from a different continent. I am representing it from the base camp. So when I do it, I have to, in a way, replicate the ambience of this country. I have to, in a way, lap it up with authenticity, ethnicity. And that's why people say, wow, I felt I was in India.
Yeah.
You know, it just didn't feel that you were so many nautical miles away. You know, so it's very different for me when I kind of represent Indian cuisine, because I have to bring in all those flavors right from here. Like, for a simple example, there is so much spoken about Indian food, but trust me, there is so much more that is undocumented, and it's not even funny. Like, you know, Indian mythology very typically talks about 7 lives. We will possibly take 14 lives and still not cover the expanse of this country when it comes to Indian food, because it is so vast. And I'm sure Gary is kind of echoing my thoughts because he has traveled this country extensively. But having said that, I'm sure there are so many times when you read things off the internet, or when you read things in cookbooks, or when you read travel stories or travel documentaries, or even blogs for that matter, you will still feel, I missed that. Oh God, I was there. I should have just kind of eaten that as well. You know, so there's so much. Now, this is when it comes to the length and breadth of this country. When you have to replicate all of this in a diplomatic banquet, it becomes completely different, because it is a very healthy, strategic, and diplomatic combination of a lot of things that you want to do and don't want to do. Because there are some times where you don't want to serve a chicken tikka masala, but you have to because it's popular. You don't want to serve the quintessential butter chicken, but you have to sometimes because that is well read of, or that is something that people have experienced in the past, heard in the past. They have come all the way to India saying, I want to taste that butter chicken. What is that butter chicken? I've heard it's velvety. I've heard it's smooth. I've heard it's sweet. I've heard it's borderline spicy. I've heard it's this, it's that, so they all come with their own assumptions about food. And the moment you think that you don't want to do this, suddenly an email comes and say, hey, XYZ wants to have this, they want to experience that.
Yeah. It's India's greatest hits.
Yeah. So in fact, I have even received emails where I have received a one line which reads, XYZ wants to taste the anti-gravity Indian bread.
What?
And I kept thinking, I said, anti-gravity Indian bread. And then when you actually technically think about it, it's nothing but a tandoori roti or a tandoori naan, which is slapped on a vertical tandoor.
Okay.
So
there you go. I thought it was like a
blows you off your wits.
I think it's too light,
Because see, now when you think of it, we never think of a tandoori naan or a tandoori roti as an anti-gravity Indian bread. But when an email like this comes, it throws you off your wits. I've even received emails where I've been told that, XYZ wants to eat the molecular gastronomic beads that have all come together and clumped together. And we have assumed that it's saffron scented. So the moment it is saffron scented beads clumped together, it's a motichur laddu.
Laddu.
So, some people have seen things on the internet. They have read things on the blog. Sometimes, it's just that photographic memory and they say, I've eaten something like this. I've seen something like this. I don't know what the name of it is. Please tell the chef. He'll make it for me. On the contrary, when you make it for our presidential guests or our prime ministerial guests, we get things in writing. That we want the banquet menu to have this. So then there is no scope for any game or any challenge because you just have to go there with your blinders on. So it's like that. As much as now, for example, suppose you have the president of an XYZ state coming in and you want to present the best of banquet. You want to get in gutti potatoes that nobody even in the country has heard of, which are these tiny baby potatoes from Assam. Now you want to do, say, roast potatoes or tandoor potatoes using gutti aloo. But no, they want bharwa aloo from the north of India, which are stuffed potatoes very typically from the north of India, or dum aloo from Kashmir. So you understand what I'm trying to say? It's diplomatic in the rightest ways.
You know what I found, and just to go back on what you talked about earlier, is that I don't think when we're talking about cool or, not even reinventing a dish. I think that, when I've traveled, I've seen so many different things and so many beautiful things, whether it's just breads, where you can just list, 30 breads without even thinking about it. We haven't been exposed to that. Most of the world hasn't been exposed to that. And what we've always said in the restaurant business, certainly now, is the restaurant business has changed so much. People want an experience. They don't just go for food. They want to feel part of something. You might be one restaurant on 3 on a progressive dinner, or it's just part of an unknown vibe that this place has got that makes it busy. And when I've always talked about Indian food in India, one of the excuses one of the things people always say is, it's not very appetizing. And I always laugh. I go, you're joking. There's some beautiful dishes and beautiful things, but sometimes it's just how they have got used to eating it at home. So when Sashi and I maybe talk about fusing things or changing things or presenting something different, it might be just actually putting it on a different plate or a bowl. And it changes the perception of that completely, or when it's served or how it's served in a menu, it can be something as simple as that. And I find too that, and a lot of, I think, what India, or certainly the capitals in India have struggled with, especially with young chefs trying to move forward, is just simply logistics and supply. So where we have got very used to amazing ingredients at the touch of our fingers, if we want baby radishes a certain size, all the green leaves intact and perfectly chilled and crunchy and picked from the ground 5 hours ago, I hate to say it, but we can get it. So actually the application of some of those ingredients, like the little potatoes you were talking about, are just a over a period of 20 years have just become almost the norm. And so when we go to India, you know, what we're often doing, you know, trying to challenge a dish or just bring a dish, you know, in a different direction, is just actually finding the ingredients. You know, you can get it one day, but you might not get it the other. You know, we can get
if I'm not wrong, I remember once Gary brought your own vegetables to India from
South Africa,
just to have that freshness.
Chuck them on a plane.
Yeah.
And I hate doing it, but it just gave me the opportunity of serving, you know, this most wonderful little crudité that I otherwise wouldn't be able to do, because I knew that I might get it one day, but not the next, or I might not get it at all, even though I'd been promised. So that, you know, there's a few things that make it very. Once upon a time, you know, a Chinese restaurant had opened in a small town in Australia, and their cuisine was completely compromised by not being able to get ingredients. So it was completely unrecognizable to, say, Cantonese or Sichuan Chinese. But now, of course, you can get anything you want. So immigrants that come into the country now and want to set up a restaurant, whether it's Vietnamese or Korean or, you know, Afghani, can find pretty much anything they want to. It's made a massive difference just to the quality of food, the style of restaurant, you know, the kind of thing that Sashi runs. You know, you want to get a particular spice, you can get it, you know?
Yeah. I think in India,
I don't know where I was going with that, but
that's fine.
It's on my mind.
But I think, Varun, you know, I had never seen those little potatoes till I was in Assam recently.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly.
Because also, like Australia, India is so vast that there is so much to discover in terms of, you know, ingredient. I mean, so many
Like, you
chefs
know, Prem, if I can add a bit there, you know, even if you take, say, the quintessential Puri Bhaji, which is known as Puri Sabzi, you know, in the north of India, you have so many varieties of sabzis that are paired along with that humble little puri.
Yeah.
It's not always an aloo ki sabzi that we think of or a potato sabzi that we think of. You know, if you go up north, there is also a sabzi made of pumpkin. And pumpkin is in the north of India called sitafal. Now, if you call it sitafal ki sabzi, you may possibly confuse it with custard apple.
Yeah.
Because in other parts of the country, it's known as custard apple. Now, if you Google it, or if you go on the, you know, reading platforms, you may not read about this sabzi, which is your sitafal ki sabzi. You may possibly read it as a kaddu ki sabzi or a bhople ki sabzi. You know, so it's like that. Now, even if you take the aloo ki sabzi, you know, in the north, if you go to places like Banaras, or you go to places like Lucknow, or you go to places like Haridwar, you may find the same sabzi which is black in color. Or even in Rajasthan for that matter. But the moment you start coming downwards, the moment you start coming to the coastline of West India, say Gujarat or Maharashtra or Goa, you'll see the sabzi going yellow in color with lots of onions thrown in there. The moment you start coming southwards or down south, you'll start seeing the addition of coconut in it. You'll start seeing the influence of red chilies in it. Now, the moment you take the east coast, you'll start seeing panchporan in it. You'll start seeing mustard oil in it. You know, so these are these little changes that make it.
So remember when we were talking about fusion food about 5 minutes ago? One of the things that was on my mind is that India is like the ultimate fusion food. And actually some of the Indian audience that we have on Instagram get really upset with me when I make comments about, I don't know, you know, if you're traveling down the west coast of India, that you see so much that is familiar in Persian and Iranian and Afghani or even Turkish food, like some of them almost identical, you know, whether it's the presence of something that's deep fried or a syrup or a nut or apricots or, you know, like Goan sausages, for example, or even the fact that I think cauliflowers, pineapples, chilies, none of these existed in India before, right? So when we've met really traditional, you know, people that are fiercely proud of, it could be a sabzi or whatever it is, fiercely proud and think that is from their area and nobody's ever tried it before, that actually when you start tracing it back and tracking it, that actually it wasn't at all. It was from somewhere completely different, like those potatoes from Assam. I wonder where they came from.
I'm eager to see
how did they find their way
how
to
does it
Assam?
look like?
You know what, somewhere, let me tell you, Gary, you know, when it comes to Indian food, I somewhere feel it's also the Indian chefs who have not explored the cuisine in its entirety. Now, if you think of, say, something like a chicken tikka or a tandoori chicken, if I shut your eyes and I just give you the platter in front of you, without opening your eyes, you will know that the tandoori chicken is paired with a green chutney and some onions, and maybe lemon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, having said that, this is a country where every home makes its own peculiar form of chutney. If for a simple example, just to give you an example, if you go to Kashmir, you get a very, very, very ethnic chutney made of walnuts, which is known as doon ki chutney. It is possibly one of the most amazing chutneys you'll ever have because it's just walnuts, yogurt, mint, and caraway seeds, and it's all stone crushed together. It's like a little knobbly, crusty chutney that comes along.
I remember that.
Now, I don't see any chef in the world serving something like this with the tandoori platters. Now, these are little chutneys. So, I have even seen international restaurants, like Indian restaurants settled or established internationally, that serve tandoori chicken with a pesto or a pesto rosso just to sound funky.
Yeah.
But why not explore the 10,000 chutneys that India has to lap here?
Yeah. But I wonder whether or not
kilometers there is a different chutney that goes on. Every 50 kilometers, the cuisine changes in India.
It's
so
insane.
Every time the same dish, it just changes, it revolves.
Because the water changes. Shashi, if you see, the water changes, the source of water changes.
Yeah.
The breeze around changes, and that has a very big influence on the soil. And because
what
it has
people do is they
adapt
to what they have in the province, and they just adapt and change according to what is available, the resources and all that. And that same food, it just revolves while it just travels down with people. And when they come over to overseas, what they do is they use the local ingredients they have in that country and try to incorporate the Indian flavors together with it. And they come up with their own flavors, which is the same chutney.
See, which is fine because then you're personalizing it. But if you have Indian food in the form of, getting it center stage or giving it center stage, then, it's important to kind of play around with what's there rather than bringing a pesto on a tandoori board.
Yeah. But the regionality,
then you're getting another continent involved.
Yeah. But the regionality is important. I think it's part of India's food story going forward, not in its past. I mean, the regionality would have been.
I can understand if aloo sabzi with puri, you have 3 different flavors of puris coming in, because then it becomes Instagrammable. Because then you have a beetroot puri coming in, or a spinach puri coming in, or a turmeric puri coming in, so that it looks nice and colorful. With an aloo ki sabzi coming in, or an achar coming in, or maybe fried chilies coming in. So that becomes a complete platter in itself, maybe on a banana leaf or maybe an earthenware dish. Yeah. But the moment you have avocado pickle coming in, or fried jalapenos coming in, then I think there are at least 40,000 chilies that possibly I can write it down for you from India. So it's those little things that I feel, should get that little more credit there.
Yeah. But there you get back to, what's happened wherever Indians have migrated to, and what they've adapted to is the fact that the reason we don't see any of this anywhere else other than when you travel, and actually most Indians don't see it either. So if you live down south, that's where you live, and the food that you eat is the food you love. That's in my experience. And you're fiercely colloquial about whether it's your biryani or your fish fry or whatever it is, and nothing else will do. I mean, I come across it all the time. If I post a picture of lacha paratha, then I'll have 300 comments about the fact that it's not lacha, it's Malabar paratha, or if you're in Malaysia, it's roti canai. And the arguments, it's like setting off a grenade, like it's fantastic.
It always happens to me also. If I do something and post, and they will say, no, this is not how it should be done.
Yeah. It's the wrong flour.
I work extensively.
I love that.
I work extensively on the digital medium. Let me tell you, even if I make, say, something, say, Bengali, there are at least 20 communities within West Bengal that make the same things differently.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a Chatterjee commenting will say, oh, I don't make it like that. A Basu commenting saying, I will not make it like that. A Roy commenting saying, oh, lovely, this just takes me back to my mother's home. A Sen Gupta will comment differently. A Mukherjee will comment differently. A Chattopadhyay will comment differently. these are all family names from West Bengal. So, that's how complex this cuisine is. It is not as simple as it seems to naked eyes.
Yeah, but that's why I think that's why we love it, And actually, I posted a spring onion pancake that's Chinese, and actually the technique is exactly the same as making lacha paratha. So to the vast majority of my Indian fans, when I told them that it was Chinese, they were having kittens, because they go, this is not Chinese. I go, well, who knows? I don't know who brought it where or where it went, and who taught somebody the technique.
Let me tell you, Gary, Indians make Chinese better than China. There are at least 20 dishes I can count and tell you which Chinese have to learn from us.
Yeah. It's kind of politically incorrect in these unstable times to mention anything about China.
Especially with China, no.
But I love the food. I love the food. We're just foodies. We just want to eat the food, right?
The three of us just went off tangent. Prim has forgotten all our questions.
Yeah, we are just going on and on.
Bring us back on track.
What is really happening is I am now so hungry with all of this conversation. Too. This is really difficult in that. But let's move back to my question. So Gary, we've always been thrilled to know that you cook Indian food at home, that you've mastered appams, paneer masala on earlier trips to India, and then you've talked about your lacha parathas and all. But you've also come back and made a whole series on Indian food and Indian tastemakers. And that was your Masters of Taste with Gary Mehigan. And you took Indian food out to people across the world as well. So why did you decide to actually work on this series? And were there a lot of surprises for you along the way while you were doing this?
Yeah, I mean, look, if I can do anything, and I'm sure everybody's the same, if you're a foodie, the idea of travel and food is, that's my ultimate retirement. If I could just do that for the rest of my life and, die in some far-flung place with a big smile on my face because I've had a big dinner, then I'd be very happy. So the opportunity, more importantly, to go into people's homes and to, share stories around the, whether it's the stove in the kitchen or at the dinner table, is kind of the ultimate pleasure. And for a chef or a foodie, actually, as a chef, I trained, as a French chef, very classical French chef in London, Michelin star restaurants. And when I think back to those days and how narrow my field of experience was compared to today, and it's a bit like you said, Varun, is that you can, it's just limitless. The recipes you learn, the techniques, the surprises that you stumble into are kind of the greatest thrill, I think, as a chef, as a foodie. So yeah, that was the opportunity. And we tried to pick, it's so vast, how do you pick, 10 cuisines or 12 cuisines that show that, or show me, or show not so much Indians, but with the rest of the world, how different it is. And I think it was just the personal connections that I loved and the stories attached to it. So yeah. And also the fact that, I get very caught up in, certain processes or techniques. Maybe it's just because I'm a man, and that's what drives me. But, you're chatting to someone who very naturally is just cooking something delicious, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and using, for a Western palate, and mine's pretty tough, but using spices, in all their complexity. We're not talking 8 spices, but 30, for example. And all of a sudden you realize that I realize when I go to India and I put on a fancy French meal, that, the purest kind of cauliflower puree with nothing but cauliflower and milk and no other kind of identity, which is, for a French chef, that's kind of the ultimate in, exemplifying a cauliflower's, goodness, is completely the opposite in India. They'll eat it and just go, well, where's the flavor? What does it taste like? That's just cauliflower. That's all it is, cauliflower, But then when you eat other local dishes, you go, or actually better that when you see a kid put chat spices on a lime and stick it in their mouth when they're 3, then you realize that your palates come from entirely different places.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I kind of like that, collision of ideas. And so it was a real privilege for me. And dishes that I learned, whether they were Kashmiri mutts or, I'm just trying to think, actually just making a kachi or is it paki biryani, for example, or a white biryani. I really enjoy making it at home because I've got somebody's family recipe that they gave me, like nahari or, targosh or something like that I can't find in a restaurant here that tastes anything as good as that, that I was shown.
Yeah.
And that's that's something that I cherish. And I feel guilty, actually. I was making a fish, like I say moile, but I'm probably saying it wrong, but it's a South Indian, fish curry. And a chef friend of mine, am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, fish moile, right, Varun?
Yeah. So I make moile probably, once a fortnight, and I love it. And I was saying to my daughter the other day, I feel guilty because the chef that gave it to me, if he saw me make it, he'd probably have palpitations because I'm sure I've changed it. Not deliberately, but I'm sure there are little nuances that, that I don't follow anymore, I've changed or I've added that he would, probably go, I need to show you again.
Always an opportunity, Gary, to come back.
Yeah.
And
well, that's right. And actually, that's why I do come back, is to kind of refresh my ideas. I mean, one of the reasons I became good friends with Thomas Zacharias at Bombay Canteen is, he introduced me to, lots of local ingredients, whether, it was mungri or ponk or harachana, things like this that I'd never seen fresh tur dal in my life. I'd actually, Australia is one of the largest growers of chickpeas in the world, but we have never seen green chickpeas here. So when you see them on the street being cooked in a big iron, kind of wok and served with lemon and salt, I'm just like, my God, this is beautiful. But lots of local ingredients that I'd not seen. And he kind of, made me realize that part of his exploration is probably what the rest of the world is kind of hungry for, is that, identifying that regionality and exporting that regionality and celebrating it too.
And I think India could give you scope for many more series, many more seasons of that series.
Oh, yeah.
I've actually had Thomas just yesterday on a panel, and the amount of, it was on regional food, and he's just off now on another one of his Chef on the Road trips in January, and he's going to Uttarakhand. And then you realize how much comes out. You go to look at one thing and so many different branches of possibilities come out in food in India. So
I followed him when he went to Nagaland, and I was just like, wow, I need to go,
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so Sashi, your comfort food is sambar, you've said, and you like cooking to A.R. Rahman songs in the kitchen, which makes us very happy. So you came to India last year and you spent some time in Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta. What were the memorable Indian dishes that you sort of had here? Did anything surprise you? And what did that trip sort of bring to your menus and your sensibility of Indian food?
Everything about a trip was a surprise because first time I'm traveling to the northern side of India. I started from Delhi, then I moved down and I end the trip in the south at Cochin. So throughout the journey for a month, actually the 1 month was not even enough. I think I need to do another second trip traveling east and west. Every state I go, every different part of India I travel, I was able to taste something different. And I make it a point to taste each individual place's biryani. Biryani was something that I will taste in every different part of the world. So I made it a point to taste biryani everywhere I go. And we will ask the locals, what is the to-go food on the street? Because I'm more of a street food person. I will go down on the street and I will just taste food off the street. So like right down from the street, pani puris, to vada pav, the Iranian teas in Mumbai, then coming to south, the thali sets, to dosas, idlis. I can go on and on. There's so much of food. And idli is something that is so popular everywhere. Like any hotel breakfast, you will see idli on the plate, which I was surprised actually. I thought idli would be more like a South Indian flavors cuisine, but it was predominantly everywhere. Idli dosas was everywhere in for breakfast. And chutneys, oh my God, the kind of chutneys they have. Every different, like Varun was telling, every different part of the country, so many varieties of chutneys and desserts. we are paradise for desserts. Yeah, I know it's sickly sweet. It's
It's
very
very
sweet,
sweet.
very sweet,
As Gary
but
always said, sickly sweet, yes.
sickly sweet. But the kind of work they've put into creating the desserts, oh my God. I've seen literally how they make Mysore Pak in Mysore.
Yeah.
Hours and hours of tedious process just to get that small piece or slab of Mysore
Yeah,
Pak,
tray, yeah,
and it
one
just
tray.
melts in your mouth. It's so different from what you get in Singapore or other part of the world. That Mysore Pak that I had in Mysore, it just melt in your mouth. It's so good.
That is the Sri Krishna Mysore Pak, and it's a different one from the original, right, Varun? The
Yes, I was
original
just in
one.
fact thinking about that, when Shashi was talking about it, because if you get the measurements even little here and there wrong, you straight get a British honeycomb.
Yes, you're right. And
Yeah.
yeah, Alva in the south. Oh my God. There was one place in Madurai called Iruttikadai Alva. They cook the alva in a dark place because they believe that that environment, that dark environment, gives an extra flavor and texture to the dish. I don't know whether it's scientifically, I think they must have done something to get that result. But that alva, oh my God. So desserts,
You
I
know,
really fall in love with desserts.
Shashi, there are so many things in the Indian food that actually have no answer to. Now, if you
Yeah.
talk about this halwa, which is made in a dark place, I am 100% sure there's something scientific to it, because we also have something parallelly happening in the north, which is called Makhan Malai or
Yes.
Malayo, which is made using the dew of the moonlight.
You see?
It's made only at 2 in the morning, and it's made till 4 in the morning, 2 to 4. That's the whole time, where they say that they actually mature it in dew and moonlight.
Correct.
So there are some things which have no answer to. And you being from Madurai, it immediately takes me to this extremely non-popular beverage across India. It's extremely
Jigar
popular in
Danda.
Madurai. It's called Jigar Thanda.
Jigar
Like,
Danda. Oh my God. It was
India
so
is
good.
obsessed with Faluda for some reason.
Yes.
But Jigar Thanda is amazing. It's outstanding with the whole almond sap coming in.
Yes. I bought a
Oof.
packet home from Madurai to do it at home.
In fact, when I was traveling last, I was in Chennai, and I kind of figured it out that, I can kind of source it from a place. I
Yes.
put it in my bag. It got removed at the customs. And for a simple reason, because when I checked with the guy, I said, but that neither was it illegal, nor was I, carrying extra weight. So he said, sir, we don't get it. So I removed it.
Oh my God. You took it.
I said, 1 minute. If you don't get it, why are you removing it from my bag? What's wrong with you? And on top of that, you're telling this to me.
And one more thing I realized in India,
cute.
as much as people like to share recipes, there are a group of people who refuse to share their secrets. As
The recipe always has 1 teaspoon of secret masala.
Yes. I went to Mumbai, this Iranian tea. For some reason, it's such a simple tea, but you can go on drinking cups after cup. So I went to the owner and asked him, so what is your secret, or how do you make it? Little bit of this, little bit of that. That's it, nothing much. So till the end, he never give me a single measurement for a simple tea.
Shashi, this time when you come, please try a tandoori chai.
Tandoori chai, okay. I haven't got a chance yet.
It's the latest obsession of this country. You must try.
Sashi, was this your first trip here?
No, I have been to India a couple of times. That was during my childhood days, but mainly to South India, where families and friends and all that stuff. But this time after MasterChef, I wanted to explore more into Indian cuisine. I want to have a bit of an understanding on how other part of India, they, in terms of produce, in terms of cooking method, techniques they use, and how food has revolved over the years from being very traditional to the current modern cuisines. And we managed to explore a wide range from street food right down to hotel foods and even big restaurants, how they, in terms of hospitality wise, I think India is one of the best in terms of hospitality. This kind of warmth you receive in the hotels, in the restaurants, I've never seen anywhere in the world, I would say. So I was able to experience a lot, and I went there at a bit of I would say a wrong time, because in Australia, July the MasterChef finale finished, but in India, it was only telecast somewhere October, November. So I was fresh in a lot of people's mind how I look like, which I didn't realize that. I was walking down in a mall in Mumbai in December, and I got mobbed over there. I was so like so many people started gathering, and I was like, yeah, that's me, the Sashi. Yeah. I quickly ran out of the place. But it was good.
You had not realized how popular MasterChef Australia is in India. It's
for a strange reason, Mumbaiers have also thought that MasterChef Australia is being shot at Film City.
I was told by Gary, Matt, and George that India is one of the biggest viewers, so this will be massive for you. But I never expected that level of warmth and love. I thought, because in Australia it's different. You can walk down the street, people will just say hi. They might take photos with you. Yeah, that's it. That's done.
Too cool.
But India was the next level.
Too cool for school. That's why. In Adelaide, it's too cool. They don't want to say hello.
No, but Sarah Todd came after MasterChef Australia, came to one of these chains called Nature's Basket in India. Yeah. And I remember my niece, she was 7 or 8 at the time. They had made it a program for among children in the school that they would be there when Sarah Todd was going to do a food demo in Nature's Basket. These were such young children, and this is a cooking program. I mean, you would not think. And after that, children in India started being so involved in looking and being conversant, whether they cooked or not. But actually, the awareness of food sort of grew to such an extent. It's quite amazing. And as you know, Sarah now has a restaurant in India, is stuck in Australia just now, and sort of most of her posts and everything lots of yearning to come back, to her second home, as she calls it, in India. So, I mean, that is something that she did. She said, I put some aloo gobi or something. It was one post when she made it on MasterChef Australia. It was something simple like that. And she got 50,000 followers overnight on her Instagram account. And that's when she actually realized the reach of, the program there. So,
one thing I realized from my whole month of tour, food is so closely related to our culture. It become part of our lifestyle that you will not live without a day without talking about food or thinking about food or any celebrations without food. Yeah. Somehow or other, somewhere in your life, we have put aside a big importance to food, and we take pride on that also. So, like, for example, they say, this is how it should be done. Like certain places I go, they tell me, if you do it this way, it's wrong. I will not accept it. This is how it should be done. Yeah. So they have taken a pride on what they are doing. So a lot of eye-opening experience for me throughout the whole 1 month. And every time I come to India, I am learning something new, some new cuisine or new skill. I think within the last 2 years, I've come to India, I think 5 or 6 times. I'm supposed to be in India twice this year, but that was cancelled because of COVID. So hopefully next year, can come and explore more places.
Yep. Actually, sorry, Gary.
All I was going to say was, before I went to India, I used to think the Italians used to argue a lot about food and politics. But then since then, no one can hold anything up to the Indians. If you want arguments about food and politics, go to India.
So Absolutely right. I'm going to move to Varun's question. So I think you have recognized how important food is and how much it can uplift mood in India. And it's such a big part of everything, as Sashi just said. And right through the lockdown, you played a very important role in putting out so much content on food and fun ways of making food. And, I think for a lot of people that is what kept them sane, because that was something that we had to do, and we had to now make it interesting and make it one of the main things in a day that was stuck with work from home, or having lost jobs in a very bad situation. So what was your sort of thought process? While did you change anything while you decided to put out all that information, all that inspiration through the lockdown, Varun?
Uh, Prim, I did not change my approach. I did not change anything, because if you know me for so many years now, my approach with food is very simple. If you find something complex, or if you do not like something, come to me. I'll cook it for you. If you still say you did not like it, then please blame the vegetable.
Yeah.
So, my approach hasn't changed, whether it was on the television or on the internet, or even on the so many platforms that I work on. My approach was very simple, and it has always been like that. Anything that is complex, I've always simplified it. Like, Gary and Shashi will echo my thoughts when I say a quintessential biryani or a traditional biryani takes a few hours to make, right? But my approach is very simple. Get all these ingredients with you, and I'll show you how to make it under 40 minutes. Now, the moment I make an announcement like that, it immediately opens up a lot of eyes, because that's why people say, oh, wow, biryani under 40 minutes with the same ingredients that are at home. Wow, we must watch this. Now, for a simple fact, just before the lockdown, the total viewership that I had on the internet was 284 million. While we speak today, I'm sitting at 533 million, which has almost doubled and has taken me to the number 3 spot in the world, with the top 2 being Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver. So it has suddenly, it has suddenly put us in a very different league, a league of its own, because this is something that nobody can kind of contest with. And it is simple, basic food from India. Now, if you think of a tandoori chicken or a biryani or whatever popular comes to your mind, you don't even have to put Varun Inamdar. And that's the best part about it. You just put tandoori chicken on YouTube and you'll see me number 1. You put chicken biryani, you'll see me number 1. You put pav bhaji, you'll see me number 1. So you do not even have to associate that food with my face or with my name. So the approach hasn't changed. It is just that it is Indian food that has begun to trend. People have suddenly realized that these are the combinations that have been working for them. Suddenly, when you look at the list of ingredients, they say, we have everything at home. Let's try this. You don't have to go all out and buy anything. That's the beauty of it. Like I remember 3 years back, I was in Jodhpur, and Vikas Khanna had suddenly called me in the middle of the night, and he said, Bhai, I need you on the set. There is something that only you can do. So I looked at him and I said, okay. I said, not that I can come. I'm already shooting for somebody in Chennai. So he said, you do whatever, but I want you here tomorrow morning. So I scratched my head and I said, okay, let me figure something out. So I requested the team and I said, listen, I have to fly down. There's something urgent that needs to be done for MasterChef India. This is in the middle of May, which is right in the middle of your summer. It's the peak of summer. And the opening shot of MasterChef India was the whole ingredient reveal task, where they had to reveal baby carrots, because the episode was to be aired in winters. Now I told Vikas, I said, why do you want to do baby carrots? Like, it's common sense. Because he said, no, that's the winter produce that needs to be highlighted. You know what I had to do, Prim? Nobody had a clue where to get baby carrots from. I took the large carrots and I trimmed them down so that they start looking like baby carrots. And with a pin, I had to put fronds of cilantro so that they look like baby carrots on screen. And then finally, if you see the episode, it is Vikas Khanna holding the carrot and saying, Aaj ka task hai baby carrot. Yeah, today's task or today's vegetable or today's reveal is baby carrots. Now, these are these little things that sometimes put streamline out of the window.
I think Gary,
I was going to say, all I was going to say is how typical of chefs to want baby carrots, because I can't even find baby carrots when I go to India anyway. I would never put baby carrots on a menu because you can never find baby carrots.
I can carve them for you. And the best part is, when this entire shoot was done and everything was done and wrapped up, everybody stood up and everyone started clapping for me, saying, and Vikas said, "See, I told you, only he can get you baby carrots in the country."
Wow, that
and
is
I'm like,
some
what's wrong with you?
That is
So it's like that. So it's basically simple approach, which just keeps everything sane, which keeps everything going, because then you don't have to really venture out to get anything, because everything is there with you. If you just look around your pantry, if you look around your refrigerator, you have everything. So that's the kind of approach.
Wow. I'm sure MasterChef India will love you after this when they hear
They love me anyway.
We should be calling Vikas and say, next time you want to use baby carrots, just use carrots, okay? Carrots are fine.
Okay, so this has been a very interesting discussion. We're almost at the end. I just want to know from you guys, what do you think the future of Indian food is out on the world cuisine changes? What do you think we're going to see in 2021 years to come? Do you see anything changing in the way that Indian food will be presented, will be adapted, anything? What do you think?
Well, I think personally what we're hoping, and I'm sure everybody feels kind of the same, is that you end up exporting the kind of discussions we've just had. I mean, you've got so much to offer. It would be lovely. People have got an insatiable, sorry for the cliche, but they've got an insatiable appetite for different, for new. And we live our travels vicariously through food, no matter where we live in the world. And so I think that's the wonder of our modern times. Once we kind of get back to a normal routine, people are going to be chomping at the bit to travel and to experience each other's, lives and cultures and food cultures. So I think that's what we're hoping. And I think what's happening in Australia right now, I mean, it's not just Indian food, but, lots of other cuisines that really, they're chasing something different, a little authenticity or regionality, and celebrating recipes that maybe are, family, passed down for generations, or dishes that they've discovered or ingredients that they've discovered that they take to a grower and ask if they can, grow it for them so that they can do something different.
Yeah.
I hope that that's what happens. I mean, it's kind of what I live for. So,
yeah.
And if you go to, I mean, if you go to an average Australian suburb, and I don't want to insult anybody, but their experience of Indian food is very, very narrow, really, really narrow. And I think part of, us celebrating and accepting and embracing each other and our differences and our similarities, a lot of it comes down to food. It's a great unifier, art, music, food, they're wonderful things that bring us together. So, if there's plenty of opportunity, and that's what I think I said the last few visits, especially to young chefs, what do I do? Where do I go? There's lots of opportunity. There's opportunity overseas, but there's opportunity, where you are. You've just got to explore it, experience it. And obviously, the more experience a chef or a cook has, the greater palette they have to paint with.
I think for myself, I would like to see people exploring roads that less travel. So there are a lot of cuisines that people have not seen from Indian food yet. A lot of mainstream people only know about the basic stuff like butter chicken, tikka masalas, and all the Manchurians and aloo and all that. Whereas there's so many cuisines in rural India that needs to be highlighted. Absolutely. So many local dishes need to be highlighted. So if chefs in India or even in overseas, if they can bring along their cuisine to another country, if they can showcase what is their local cuisines and making it look presentable and giving the background knowledge about a food to the people, I think that is something that I would like to see in the near future. Local food, local cultures being explored and showcased. That is something that a lot of education need to be given behind that, because people in most part of the world might not know what is the rural food is, what the locals are having, what the street food is having. So bringing that out to the mainstream is something that I would like to see.
Absolutely. And I think really the lockdown across the world has sort of taken people into people's homes. So, you know, I mean, we feel the stories and you feel the culture in so many more, you know, in such deeper ways than before, because we've sort of all had to travel vicariously and then look at people's food.
Yeah.
And there's been such a great sort of opportunity to go regional and, you know, actually go into things that was so much more than just the mainstream that we know. Varun,
Yes.
what
You
do
know,
you
if I
think?
can just add a line to it, you know, because of this pandemic, fortunately, unfortunately, however we see it, India and Indian food has suddenly got center stage. It suddenly got that spotlight because of its immunity boosting,
Yes.
you know, properties. Whether you talk about Ayurveda, which has suddenly taken center stage, everybody has started exploring different herbs and spices from India
Yeah.
via the internet. And you know, internet has a huge power. You know,
Yeah.
it transcends the powers of a television screen, because
Yeah.
suddenly it's all on your fingertips. It's suddenly all in
Yeah.
front of your eyes. And you know, when you think
Yeah.
about something like this, and I'm happy Shashi very rightly said that, you know, a lot of these little cuisines, I call them micro cuisines,
Yeah.
need to, you know, to be gotten to that level, to you know, to that stage, because there is so much to explore in India which is unexplored. Also, another thing that I would like to add here, and I may sound very shrewd at this point in time, but you know, that's what the reality is. It's important that people stop reading information that is incorrect. It's important to bring in some kind of a filter even on the internet, because there is so much written right and so much written which is incorrect. You know, if you see the average age of somebody on the internet, it is 12. Now imagine that age group
Yeah.
editing something, writing something, picking things off people's blogs, stealing paragraphs from here, lifting something from there, and just kind of assembling their own little blogs in the wake of, you know, trending or, you know, these likes and followerships on, you know, social media platforms. So I think it's time that we start following the right kind of people. You know,
Correct.
we all in our own respective countries have bloggers who are well traveled, who write so beautifully well. You know, so, you know, it's important to kind of start following the right kind of people to get the right kind of information. I think it's very important right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Touching on that, I've started selling a lot of turmeric latte in my restaurant recently.
Yes.
I love you, Shashi, already.
People have started buying a lot of these spice chais and turmeric lattes.
You know, my grandmother's already shivering in her grave.
Okay, so now we're going to our rapid fire round. We're going to do it in this order. It's Varun, Sashi, and then Gary. I will ask you something and you will do it rapidly, right?
Okay.
So, tell us your favorite Indian dish. Varun.
Jalebi.
Sashi.
Biryani.
I was going to say biryani. I'll go
That's
for
fine.
anything. To be honest, anything out of the tandoor. I'm going to build my own tandoor. I'm missing it so much.
Oh my God.
God, I
Okay.
just need that flavor. I just need the flavor. Maybe some of that levitating bread.
Anti-gravity bread. Anti-gravity.
Anti-gravity bread.
Okay, Varun. One Indian dish you wish more people knew about.
Wow. I think Kashmiri food on its whole, and Bihari food. I think Bihari food is quite an unexplored cuisine right there. So I think everything about Bihari food.
Sashi.
Chettinad cuisine.
Yes. Gary.
Are we talking a dish or a cuisine?
You're all a bit all cheaters, so it's fine. Go with whatever you It's fine.
But you know, it may not be rapid, but it has a lot of fire.
It does. It does. That's the main part. That's
Because
Gary, you're
Chettinad
still
cuisine,
cheating and
people-
you haven't told us.
If we're cheating,
Chettinad cuisine,
you know,
people. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, no, you go.
Oh,
Yeah. Because
Very
Chettinad
rapid
cuisine,
fire, you
people think is the same as South Indian cuisine, but Chettinad itself is so diverse, and the way they cook is totally different. So that is something that we need to look into it.
so Gary, you
since we're
cheated
going
and
with-
got
if we're
more
gonna go-
time to drink.
set of dishes. If we're going to go cuisines, see, I like Kerala cuisine or South Indian. I think it's the most relatable to Australia because we love Thai food and Vietnamese food.
Yes.
So we love that that lightness. The things like limes and coconut, and that's our idea of kind of freshness and crunch. I think is if we can have more of that, I think I think people will fall in love with Indian cuisine. And it's if I use that word as a whole, which is terrible.
Yeah. Okay, Varun, your favorite Indian sweet?
My favorite Indian sweet, of course, I spoke about jalebi earlier, but a nice Rajasthani ghevar made correctly.
Absolutely.
Lacy, crisp, juicy at the same time.
With malai and rabdi on the top.
With the malai and rabdi and the hole in the center. I think it just kind of, and it's such a wonderful way of making. I think it's possibly one of the most difficult desserts, yet so simple at the same time.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh my God.
Sashi.
I've got a massive sweet tooth, but top three I will choose is Montichor Laddu, Alva, and Mysore Pak. These are my favorite. Anytime I will go for it.
And now Gary, who doesn't like Indian sweets.
No, I don't know where you get that from. I just don't know where you get that from. I love
sweet.
Indian. No, I love Indian sweets, but I think that in a modern interpretation, for most of us, if you look at the worldwide trend, sweets are becoming less sweet. All right. So when I look at things like gulab jamun and jalebi and things like this, if you could just lighten up a little bit, actually they express themselves still beautifully. I remember, I think I had a gulab jamun in an espresso type syrup, and it was really light. It was more like a donut than this heavy, kind of. Because when my eyes roll back into my head when I've had about 3 of them, and I start having palpitations. But I do like malpua. I love malpua. With like a little chickpea pancake with I think it's rubbery as well, which is that sweetened, that reduced milk. And I also like the kind of rice pudding. I still love, that kind of saffron laced and bejeweled rice pudding.
Nice. Okay, so now you're going to choose dishes for each other. Varun, what would you like Gary to taste?
Gary has traveled India extensively, so I wouldn't want him to taste something direct. I would want him to taste the cake that I made on a very special episode for MasterChef India. As a guest chef, I had created a chocolate cake, because I was asked by the team to create a chocolate truffle cake. But what I had done is I had very smartly hidden a lot of Indian flavors. So the sponge represented Kashmir. The ganache represented Kerala. So it had coffee. The sponge had roses from Kashmir. The syrup had, I'm forgetting. It had something
Just
from
invent it. We don't know.
India.
You can say anything you want.
No, it had chilies. It had chilies from Odisha, and it also had mangoes from Gujarat, and it had all come together, and that's how it was this whole chocolate truffle cake with India in a lot of these little pockets. I think for Gary, I'll make that again.
I think I'd like that. That'd be delicious.
And it was bitter. It was not sweet.
Oh, perfect. I don't mind a bit of sweet and bitter. If they work together, that's,
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful combination. I think I would make that for you.
Okay. So Gary, what would you make for Sashi?
Oh, I've got to make a dish for him.
Yeah.
Okay. Sashi, I think it was in the finale of MasterChef. You made a really delicious, like a crispy prawn, didn't you?
Yes,
Do you remember that?
Sambal.
That absolutely beautiful. And I'm trying to remember, did you put curry leaves and things like that in it?
No,
Do you remember?
put herbs.
Was it a
salad.
rasam or?
The rasam was in one of the semi-finals.
Yeah.
No, semi-final. Rasam
No,
was
you did a crispy prawn. Anyway, I was thinking about that because one of my favorite things at the moment is I like that that South Indian kind of application of pepper and curry leaf.
Oh yeah.
And I was just thinking, right now, lobster in Australia is supposed to be getting cheap because
Yes.
there's thousands of tons that can't go to China. So I'd cook you a lobster dish. It'd be very sophisticated, and I'd make a very subtle kind of version of, like butter poached with pepper and say vanilla, curry leaf. But then I'd make a really kind of complex sauce of the same ingredients. I think you'd like that.
Nice, good, yum.
I'm getting hungry now.
Yeah. You're giving me ideas now.
I hate you, Gary, because you're not making it for me.
Oh well, I can make it for everybody. We can do a round table.
I've unfriended you already.
Okay, now Sashi.
Don't worry, Varun. I'll make for you something nice today. Okay. Since you are known as the dessert person in India, so I'm going to make for you a nice dessert with a lychee sorbet and a white chocolate mousse, a bit of macadamia crumbs and some puff rice, and a bit of a chocolate butterscotch on top.
Yeah, that's
50,000
nice.
followers more to you.
Yeah.
50,000. Okay, now my last question, because we're running quite late.
We are.
Yeah. Varun, you have been made the master of the food universe. What is the first thing that you will do?
Feed the planet.
Okay.
That's good.
Sashi.
That's
Sashi.
good. Well done.
Master of the food universe, Sashi. What would you do?
Wow. I will set up an outlet in every part of the world for people to taste my food.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's selfish. Selfish and capitalist.
It's fine. It's
You're
honest.
a god. You can do what you want. You can force them to eat your food.
Yeah.
You're a god.
My food.
I'm
7 days a week.
To be forced to eat his food, so it's fine. Gary, you're the master of the food universe. What would you do?
You know what I would do? You know what I would do is I would stop the industrialization of food. I would just stop it. Just this mistreatment and mismanagement and carelessness when it comes to our beautiful planet. And I think all of us foodies kind of dream of this utopian, artisan, but, looking after our soil and our animals as we should.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. That would be my first, with my big staff in my, as I slam it into the ground, that would be the first rule.
Absolutely. Guys,
No more feedlots.
So Gary, imagine the three of us coming together. You stop industrialization. Sashi opens restaurants in every corner of the street, and I feed the planet. So imagine the three of us coming together.
It all comes together very well.
We can all roam on the flying carpet across the world.
The errand child is always going to be Sashi because he's trying to open more restaurants.
That he was honest. That is good. Once you're master of the universe, you can do anything. So fine, Sashi, you're good. Guys, we wrap this up. You all have been such fantastic panelists. We've learned so much about Indian food and wonderfully about each of you as well, including Sashi's great plans to take over the world. I want to thank all three of you for being with us today on this and actually showing us such great insights into your lives as well. I know this is a really busy time for you because it's the festive season. So thank you so much. And all the very best, all power to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us on.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Sashi. Thanks.
See you.